Good evening, everyone. We're about to open the special call, not a special call meeting, the study session for tonight. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge of allegiance to our country's flag. Anyone who feels like joining me, please feel free to do so.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda is school safety workshop. Ma'am. We can visit or we can get done and get back out of here. Say what? I done missed it.
I say 9 o'clock, I'm up.
I done missed it, really fortunate.
They're hot off the presses.
All right, let's call it back to order, everyone.
Can we just go ahead and vote on the budget?
Let's get her done. All right, we've called back to order, and Dr. Langford, you're up.
All right, so a couple things you'll notice immediately. We have retired the budget presentation with the pencils at the bottom. Amanda's wanted to for quite some time, but you know, this will be a little different. And I'll be honest, this is the first time I've ever done this. Of course, I was part of the process before. I want to take just a minute and thank my team. Let me start with the finance team. I can't even begin to tell you how many hours Amanda has worked on this budget. I have no idea how she does what she does. It's 1,700 lines of data that she analyzes, and the way she's able to very quickly get an answer to questions and put things together and run scenarios. We have worked, I'll go through the process in a little bit, but everybody here has worked tremendously hard to get the budget done. But Amanda and Rhonda and Chris and Trevor and their whole team have gone just way beyond the pale. Rhonda is probably the most long-suffering human being alive, because if you've ever been stuck for 6 hours in a room with Amanda and me, we are both more than a little ADD, and Rhonda is not. So, you know, I can't tell you enough to say that, Rhonda, thank you. You know, thank you to Amanda, thank you to your team, and it extends beyond just the ones I've named, but also to my cabinet. We have tried to make this budget, you'll notice some differences in the way the presentation is done. We try to tell the story of the work that we're doing as a district, and we're trying to also, you know, you've got the budget book with all the numbers and everything. We'll be happy to go through and crawl through those as deeply as you want tonight, and then obviously you'll want to dig through those, and when we come back we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of everything next week. And I'll just tell you, there'll probably be some changes between now and next week. I would encourage everybody, if you have any questions, we'll answer as many questions as we can tonight. If it's really technical, Amanda may not be able to pull that answer from the floor tonight, and we'll get you an answer. And you can also email me any questions that you have as you look through it, and Amanda and I'll get together and we'll get them answered as quickly as possible. So let me go ahead and jump in, and we'll get started. Our guiding question for this whole process that we started from the beginning is, how are we providing the best pre-K through 12th grade education for all Sumner County students? Mr. Wise has challenged me 3 times now to move towards universal pre-K. I 100% agree with him. Our pre-K team is working on it. It's going to take some help from the state. but they are constantly looking for ways to expand pre-K. We think it would be huge for our kids. So this has been our guiding question that we've started and ended every budget discussion, is what do we do to provide the best quality education for all Sumner County students? And so just a little bit, because I don't know, if everybody understands what Sumner County students look like and what they are now. Our students are proficient readers, mathematicians, and problem solvers. We were just featured in Hetzinger Report and the Philadelphia Inquiry for our math curriculum. It's very positive coverage, really fascinating to compare to what's going on in Pennsylvania. But we're really proud of the work that our K-12 students are doing, pre-K through 12th grade students are doing and what they're learning. Our students, this one is mind-boggling. Our students join us from Sumner County and from around the world. Our students speak 60+ dialects and come from over 90 nations. We have refugees from Ukraine, from Israel, from everywhere in the world. We have a number of Afghani refugees that have moved here recently whose parents fought the Taliban and they had to be evacuated quickly, and they left everything behind, and they're here in Sumner County schools. And what I think is beautiful about Sumner County is those kids have all been received warmly. And that's an exciting part. You can see our English language learner population has increased by 194% since 2015. We had 600 something students in 2014-15. We have over 1,700 now. We're growing about 17% a year. We're adding about 20 or 30 EL students a month now. All Sumner County students learn and excel. One of the statistics that's not shown on here, but I wanted to share with you, Ms. Dam and her team test students or children under the age of 2 whose parents begin to notice or have an identification from a doctor or other medical professional that they might have special needs. They do testing. In 2021, when those children that were tested, when the results came back, about 48% in Sumner County were diagnosed to need early intervention. That number last year was 78%, this year it's 74%. The lowest number of students with disabilities that we will ever have in Sumner County is right now. Our students with disability population, our EL population, are going to continue to grow. In terms of economically disadvantaged students, there's a trend that's going on that's not unique to Sumner County. It's pretty common across the country in suburban areas. Our county is getting wealthier and poorer at the same time. If you got your property tax evaluation, I guarantee it probably went up. Mine went up 77%. At the same time, the number of kids that we have that are living in poverty is also increasing. It will continue to increase. One of the things that we have to address next year budgetarily with TISA is we have a lot of kids whose parents aren't filling out the free and reduced lunch form, which leads to a monumental amount of lunch charges. It also hurts us in, like our Title I budget was cut $450,000 this year. Some of that's the form, some of it is because we're becoming more affluent. So at the top end of our county, we're getting really affluent. On the economic disadvantage part, we're also getting poor at the same time. It's going to be a challenge as we move forward. But I want to go back and say that regardless of a kid's circumstance, where they come from in the world, or how much money their parents make, our students are welcomed in Sumner County and they will learn and excel. And our students are Sumner ready. Upper left corner, I got invited to the Beach Elementary Career Day, and you're going to see this picture again in a little bit. But they had a firefighter, they had a helicopter, they had a SWAT team, they had a little bit of everything there, and it was really a great day. And I think the kids really enjoyed it. We've seen kids get to go to the Meta truck that had all the different post-secondary opportunities. And we have trained, Lisa, I didn't get a chance to look at the statistics. Tell me, how many kids have we trained in CPR this year?
Thousands.
We've trained thousands of kids this year. Yeah. All right, so what are our budget goals? Invest in preparing students for the future in their first career. Provide opportunities for students to learn in real-world settings. Increase compensation for all staff. Address critical school facility needs. Continue to innovate as a school district. These are the goals that we think are most important as we move forward into the future. We've talked a lot this year about Sumner Ready. I like this display of the picture better because you have the little girl at Beach Elementary operating a fire hose with a firefighter, and then you have Addison DeWitt, a Liberty Creek High School student, who's, as far as we know, the first high school student to get a pilot's license. So what's fascinating is Addison didn't know that aviation was her calling until her junior year in high school. She took a class and found this passion. This third grader, the world is open for her to do anything she wants. Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, the Chamber of Commerce did a study about 10 or 12 years ago. They used the same product that we use, UScience, to test career interest and career aptitude. We have, as a requirement, we have to give an interest test. What we didn't want, because interest only captures what your parents do if you're testing young kids. UScience captures not only what you're interested in, but what you're good at. When the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce did this study, they found that 16% of female students had an interest in a STEM career, 64% had an aptitude. They had to have somebody name that as a career path. My own daughter thought she was going to be an English teacher. She took a STEM class at White House High School her sophomore year and now wants to become an architect because somebody named that as a possibility. And that's what we're really talking about with Sumner Ready, is how do we provide students the opportunity for their passion and their skill to cross, to intersect, and then how do we find opportunities for them to get out in the community to taste what it's like to be in that career. I mean, how many of us, and this is a real question, it's not rhetorical, how many of us are in the career we went to college or school for? Sluggers Row over there. People know at an early age that they're going to be an accountant. But you know, I can't even tell you how many careers I walked through before I chose. But most kids, and especially now, our kids are going to inhabit a world that's changing more rapidly than any time since the Industrial Revolution. The world is less safe now than it was prior to World War I. And we got to do everything in our power to prepare kids to be ready for a rapidly changing world. Now, the beauty of that is a lot of it is professional skills. Can you look somebody in the eye? Can you carry on a conversation? Can you not be bound to a phone or device? And can you work together in a group? And the way we do that is by giving kids opportunities to learn that way and then teach them the skills that travel with it. I think a big part that we're going to push, you'll hear more about it over the summer, but I'm really excited about this. Sumner gives back. We pour, when you see this budget tonight, it's massive. We pour millions and millions of dollars into our kids, and we want to. I think every generation, every school board, every elected official anywhere since the beginning of time has always wanted the best for the next generation of kids. And we certainly do. But one of the things that I think, if we're truthful over the last 30 years, that we have forgotten, you know, it's in the gospel, those to whom much is given, much is expected. And we have to reiterate that with our kids. We need to provide them incentives and opportunities to give back. We haven't really done anything systematic yet. We already have examples of this throughout the county. I mean, here's a classic case. These two young men at Lakeside Park Elementary were out playing baseball and riding their bikes, and they saw Judge D. Gay crash on his bike and break his hip, and he couldn't move. He couldn't get up. These boys not only went over and gave him assistance, they stood with him when their dad came to help them. They got Judge Gay into the ambulance and ready to go. His bike was still there. One of the boys, the older boy, he held the bike outside the window because it wouldn't fit in his car, and they drove it all the way back to Judge Gay's house and put it up. These are just two exemplary young men. And that's the spirit that we want to inculcate in all of our kids. And we do that by providing opportunities. One of the things that we hope to do next year is train a group of kids to be our kind of cadre across the county to go back and start. Well, let me hold off. I want to save that. I got some more work to do. I got an idea for some big projects that we can do that will benefit a lot of kids in Sumner County. But we want to see, you know, I was thinking Saturday I was at the Strawberry Festival. And there were 40 to 50,000 people there. It was a great event, 250 vendors. Somebody from Florida was griping about the price of Portland strawberries. They said Florida strawberries were much cheaper, and I had to say, this will be weird, Mr. Gregory. I had to defend Portland's honor. I had to say, you haven't tasted a Portland strawberry. They're way better than Florida berries. But, you know, as I was looking at it, I was thinking, absolutely. No. The Strawberry Festival exists because of the vision and work of dozens and hundreds of individuals. And they see the value of it to give back to their community. The same thing in Gallatin and Hendersonville, White House, all across the county. We see these activities, but it's people that have learned the importance of giving back to their community. We are failing as educators and professionals if we don't instill in our kids a desire to give back to their community. It's always been a part of classical education. It's something we're going to really emphasize over the next year. All right, what was our budget process like? I told you last year when I interviewed that I wanted our budget process to be as transparent as possible and to have as many fingerprints on it as we could. We began back in September meeting with principals to discuss capital. We, of course, got the opportunity to talk about athletic facilities an incredible amount of time. I don't know if y'all remember this. When the cicadas broke ground, some of my cabinet asked me if I was a director experiencing biblical prophecies. So we've had the opportunity to really, we had the opportunity to bring in every school community, boosters and parents and principals and athletic directors to sit around and talk about the future of our school facilities and what that would look like. In September, also, between September and January, our compensation committee began meeting, and we had that presentation in January. In January, we began department budget meetings, which meant that we met, Ms. Brown and I met with every department in the central office, and we went through their budgets, asked them for their wants and needs. We cut most of those, to be honest, but they're getting over it, mostly. But we wanted to be able to start the budget process early, so we'd have more time to put it together. And then we met with principals in February. We moved that meeting cycle up about 2 or 3 weeks. So by the end of February, we had met with every department and every principal. That allowed us 2.5 solid months of budget preparation. And we have worked, I think, every minute of that time. Again, just a huge shout out to Ms. Brown and her team for the work that they've done. So let's get into it. What are our revenue projections? Okay, I sent y'all a lot of information about TISA because this is our first real time to work through TISA. Last year, they just gave us a number, and we operated off of it. This year, we had to do a tremendous amount of work on the back end. Everything in TISA is about coding students. And I want to be really clear. I wanted to walk through TISA a little bit tonight because I'm afraid, the positive of TISA is that it's based on funding students. And it puts our budget focus on students. And I think that's a positive thing. I think that's a very good thing. Students should always be the center of all of our conversations. So it puts students at the center. The fear I have is that as we talk, it's kind of like if you ever worked in churches and they used to say all pastors care about are the ABCs, attendance, buildings, and capital. That's not true for churches. It's not true for us. The individual child is always the most important thing. And I love the fact that it rewards us for good performance in our schools. But the problem with it is I don't want it to seem like we're just focused on students because of the money that they generate for us, because that couldn't be farther from the truth. So we got to really dig in and understand this. And I think it's important to take a little bit of time tonight. And I will tell you that if you have mastered TISA, you will be one of the few people in the cosmos that's mastered it. There are still a lot of things that we're figuring out, and I think it will continue to change and evolve with each legislative session as we get more experience with it. So I want to talk just a little bit about our revenue projections. TISA, and I'll walk through some of this is TISA and state grants. There are still some things like voluntary pre-K, some of the after-school programs, a couple other things that are funded outside of TISA. Most things have now been rolled into TISA. So if you total up all the state revenue, we're receiving $207,295,434. That's about $7.8 million increase from last year. That includes money, $125 million statewide in teacher pay raises to get the minimum rate to $47,800. There was talk in the legislature early on about trying to get to 50. They had a lot going on this legislative session. So they went to $47,800 in the money that's provided in TISA. So let me walk you through just a little bit. There are 3 parts to TISA. There is the base, there are the weights, and then there's the direct. Okay, the base, and I promise you we're not going to go through all of these. We can talk later if you have a specific question. We can dig into it. The base is what they give you for every student that you have in your school system. It increased from, I think, around $6,700 to $7,075 this year. That you can see what that number balances out to at the top up there, 213 million. Okay, and then you can see economically disadvantaged. You can see concentrated poverty. Those are kids that live in or adjacent to areas of concentrated poverty. You can see that's a substantial number of our students, 12,000 of our 30,000 students. Each of those ULNs are unique learning needs, and that covers the full gamut of special education services. It covers dyslexia, it covers English language learners. There are a host of student needs that are addressed in those, and you can see that the funding amount ranges from 15% to 150% for our students that require the most care and support. And so you can see the dollar amounts there. And then you can see the direct. We receive $500 for each kindergarten through third grader for literacy. We receive fourth grade supports, CTE. ACT, you will see they put in and then they back out because they're paying that directly from the state. And then we don't have a charter school, so that's left out. So you can see that the total, when I got this, I was really excited because I thought we were about to get a check for $270 million. Okay? What I found is, remember that the way TISA is set up, 70% is from the state, 30% is a local contribution. So we're not getting the $270 million. That's the calculation of what's should happen for Sumner County schools to function according to the TISA formula. All right, if you look at this, you'll see, I'm not going to walk through all this. This is a complicated calculation. Yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just a quick question before we get too far to it. Looking at the weights with the students and services, how do we get partial students?
How do we get what?
Partial students.
It's based on your average daily attendance. So they divide it by the number of students that attended by certain, so
Okay.
yeah, there's not a quarter of a student or a
No, that's,
27.
okay. I'm like, I
Yeah.
understand services,
Yeah.
but when you're looking at the actual students, we're
Yeah,
doing-
or like if it's done, I think North is done by service hours. So it could, so for instance, like on CTE, if you take a CTE class, you don't get the straight dollar amount, it's the percentage of the day. So if you take one block of CTE, you get 0.25 of that.
I was looking more so at like the economically disadvantaged or the concentrated poverty students, because
Yeah, that's based on, they do a calculation based on your daily
on how
attendance.
they, and if they're moving, okay.
Yeah, and you know, if a student's there 3/4 of the year versus, you know, the money, important thing on TISA is that the money moves with the student.
Right.
That's as we move forward through future sessions and everything, the money with TISA is tied to the student. BEP is gone, right? There's no more calculation like that. You know, we'll get questions sometimes like, well, how does this contribute to teacher insurance and things like that? That's gone. It's funded by the student now. Okay, this is a really complicated formula. And we would have to sit down and I'll have to show you what it is. Basically, they calculate what the local share is. They divide that out among all the counties and school systems, and then they do an adjustment based on fiscal capacity. Between our March estimate and our April estimate, the TASER calculated what local contribution was, and Sumner County's increased from 2.58 to 2.63. So that decreased our revenue by 1.23 million. That's going to be a concern. This will get easier with time as we have more runs of TISA. We'll all be able to better calculate and figure out how this is. You know, no one really knew what was going to happen when they dropped that number, but you can see basically that means that if a county without a significant amount of revenue, they might be lower than 1. A county that's at the median of the state will be about 1, so they wouldn't lose anything. But more affluent counties like Williamson and Wilson and Sumner, they're going to have to contribute more locally. Now, down at the bottom, you can see district maintenance of effort, right? This is what the county commission is required to give us each year. They can't go below this. So what this means with TISA is until we get higher than that $126 million, any change, so when that 1.23 million increase happens, that comes out of our money on the school side, because the commission is giving us way above what the required maintenance of effort for the state's like 70 million something. So until that 70 million is above 126 million, any change, any decrease in funding in TISA, any increase in local requirements is going to come out of our side of the equation. Now, on one hand, when that's 1.23 million dropped, I was like, That really stinks. I wish we had that 1.23 million. The flip side is we're guaranteed $126 million, right? Otherwise, we'd be trying to make up, $50, $60 million. So I'm thankful for the money that we get from the county, very appreciative of that, and thankful for the money that we get from the state. Now, all this is, we work through the rest of the thing, we're gonna have to advocate and lobby hard with our county commission and our state legislature to increase funding for schools. This is a budget that does best for schools and for students. And there's gonna be some sacrifices that we're gonna have to make in future years to get to where we need to. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, this is, you don't have to worry about this one. Because they put $125 million in for teacher pay raises, we're required to put at least $3.9 million in for teacher pay. Don't worry, we got it. Okay, so this is, let me walk through our county revenue. So this is projected. I've had several conversations with Commissioner Shove. I want to commend Commissioner Shove. We've had some great, very transparent conversations, and the budget committee is working hard to take care of the school system. So we're going to receive about $7.5 million in new revenue from the county. All right, the $7.72 million, let me explain that. Last year, we weren't sure what we would get from the county commission, so we projected it at the previous year's revenue level. We built our budget off a flat allocation from the county commission, okay? Because that was their first budget. And I can tell you, I've told Commissioner Shove a number of times that the worst job in Sumner County is budget chair of the Sumner County Commission, right? You have no friends because you have to say no all the time. And one of the things that's hard is that you have to say what that, you have to determine with Mr. Walling what those revenue projections look like. And that comes through a committee. It's going to be hard on them this year because they also have to set the tax rate. There's a lot of pressure on them this year, a lot of hard work for them to do on the commission side. We're pretty confident about the $7.5 million that we're going to receive that, so we're going to go ahead and budget that. The $7.7 million is additional revenue that we caught above because we projected here conservatively. We caught that much extra, so we got a little bit of a windfall there to help us in our budgeting there. So our county revenue is up $15.2 million, but that's not $15.2 million every year. That's basically 2 years of new revenue and growth. All right, we're going to use $26,315,000 to balance our budget or to make our budget serviceable from our reserve funds, okay? So that comes in on the revenue side. We'll dig into that in a little bit. All right, expenditures. We are happy to go as deeply into this tonight as you want. I prefer, let's go through the presentation and then see how you want to dig into the expenditures, because I know it's a lot since you just got your budget book. It's going to be hard to dig through everything. Let me show you. It's really easy for me to show you where the money's being spent. First off, this is how our expenditures break down, our projected budgeted expenditures. 81.9% goes to salary and benefits. Remember that education is an industry where our product is essentially the teachers that we put in front of kids. You can't run a school system without teachers in front of kids. And so always and forever, our teachers and our staff will be the #1 expenditure in the school system. And you can see the others. We spent a lot on capital this year. We did a ton of capital projects. I'm thankful that it benefited us during our Noah's Ark-esque flood from last week. You can see we spent a lot on maintenance and operations. That includes everything from diesel fuel, gasoline, natural gas, water, electricity, all the different materials and supplies that maintenance uses. Contracted services, all of our software now goes in contracted services because most of it's on the cloud. And so that's also things like legal fees and contracted services like with psychologists and different groups like that. That's all that rolled into one. So those are our 6 largest expenditures. And to give you a little bit, this is where you'll see where we're spending our money, proposing to spend our money this year. This is the year-over-year increase from last year's budget to this year's budget. $30+ million in increase in salary and benefits. And then a significant increase in capital, some in maintenance and operations. Let me talk about supply and materials. One thing that we will have to forego in next year's budget. We're going to cover school supplies this year. That'll be a decision we'll have to go hunt down money if it's something that y'all want to do. Right? It's going to be hard. It's about 1.5 to 1.8 million to purchase the school supplies. We've been purchasing that out of ESSER. We started doing that because it was hard for families to get out during COVID, and many families had been dislocated, they'd lost work, things like that. So we started buying school supplies. It's been a great benefit for our schools, but it's $1.5 to $1.8 million a year. When we've thought about our budget goals, we got to do what's best for kids. And this year, the number one thing we're going to do that's best for kids is pay our people. We've got to do that to invest directly in our classrooms and support staff in order to meet our needs. Now, our schools have a surplus, an abundance of school supplies right now. We bought so many over the last few years that most of our schools have enough school supplies to help kids. We will step up the Family Resource Center. The United Way has always been good to do Stuff the Bus campaigns. I think we can work with the community and hit a lot of it. But, you know, we tried to find a way to include that 1.5 to 1.8 million for school supplies. It's just hard to find. That's something, though, if you want to consider it, it's something that we can consider and try to find, but it's going to be hard as you look at the realities of the numbers. Okay, our projected reserve. For the last 4 or 5 years, the biggest complaint has been that we had a massive reserve. I hope I am wrong and that Ms. Brown is wrong and that the reserve is way higher than this. Okay? Right now, that is a conservative, that 4.9 million is a conservative estimate, right? We hope it's higher. We are going to, you know, I'll try to quit going scriptural. Hopefully they say he's not listening. But you know, there's a story about how you store your grain and save it for when there's a famine. You know, we've had 8, 9, 10 solid years in Sumner County schools where we've saved money and we've made investments in building our reserve. Our recommendation is going to be to spend between capital and operating expenses to spend a considerable amount of that reserve. I'll go through a little bit why I think that's because let me tell you, there's nothing that makes me more nervous than committing this much of our reserve. And I'm going to explain why I think it's important for the board to do this. But I want to go ahead and name, again, I mentioned earlier, you know, regardless of our differences, regardless of our affiliations, the one thing that we're all going to be able to agree on next year is we got to lobby hard with everybody that funds us, the feds, the state, and our county, to come up with the money that we need to operate our school system. Also trying to be responsible. You know, one of the things we're trying to do is make it so that we don't put any extra pressure on our funding partners at the state and the county. All right, what are we trying to do in this budget? This is the part where I think it's important to tell a story, because I think sometimes in budgets we lose the importance of what we're trying to do as a school district. We provide high quality resources for students, whether that's intervention materials with Wilson Foundations, whether that's high quality math curricula. We're adding pre-AP curricula for English. One of the areas where we've lost a lot of growth at the high school level is in our top quintile of students. Pre-AP is a great way for high school teachers to have access to English materials that will boost the rigor of those classes. And the teachers that have already started looking at this year are really, the ones that I've spoken to at several high schools are really excited about it. Next year is a science curriculum adoption year. This is going to be the first super modern textbook adoption, right? Because I don't think it'll feature textbooks. What we are seeing is a curriculum itself that may be free. The cost will be in supplies. The cost will be in lab equipment and supplies, which I'm excited about. You don't get third graders excited about science by reading and copying definitions out of a textbook. You get third graders and fourth graders excited with STEM activities and hands-on stuff. You know, if you have kids at Union, how excited are they when they watch butterflies? You know, when you're at Station Camp or Howard or one of our other STEM schools and you see the activities that they do. We want that for every kid across the board. Just in terms of our return on investment that we're seeing, total scholarships, Last year, the class of 2023 had over $64 million of scholarships offered. I was at White House High School's honors night last night. There were over $7 million offered, 2.6 million accepted. One student, she was a National Hispanic Merit Finalist. She won. Leader Lambert was sitting next to me, and she got so much, all the regalia and everything. He's like, I'm not sure she'd be able to hold her head up. But she ended up with a full ride to Emory to be a nurse. So our students, our return on investment is huge. Our dual enrollment, AP class, the state is shifting to 5 AP classes. We're in conversation, we're trying to write a grant right now to push that up to 10 dual enrollment classes for areas that are high need in the county, like education and mechatronics and different things like that. It's a little early. We got a meeting with Ball State on Thursday that I'm really excited about. By next week, I may be able to tell you about. We've got some really great emerging programs that are coming. Industry certifications. We're over 1,000 industry certifications last year, and that continues to rise. Really excited about the work to see what our kids are doing. Our reading improvement in 3rd grade especially is starting to increase, and that comes from an investment in, for many years in education, no one thought about testing and measuring where kids were until they got to 3rd grade. Now we're starting the first week of kindergarten. I'm hoping there's a movement to shift 3rd grade retention to 1st grade, which is where I think it's much better. That's a good conversation to have. 3rd grade is really on the late side, and it's a problem. The biggest problem being, this will be my only gratuitous shot of the night, the fact that we've changed the 4th grade retention rules 3 times in the last 3 weeks. Enough said about that. Okay, how do we provide support for all students? Our return on investment is in our people. It enriches all of our students and their school experience. Programs are successful because of the people that run them and operate them. Every time, when we have students that come up here, the students are so impressive, and equally impressive are the adults that work with them. And we see that. So these are some areas that we identified where we provide support for all students outside of direct academics. Career coaches and summer interest camps, school counselor coordinator, 504 and homebound supervisor and team. We added that this year. Last year, when I met with principals for the first time, we discussed a moonshot of how we could give them about 8 hours of time back a week, so they would have more time to be in classrooms. Principals bear the highest level of pressure in our school system. They carry a huge burden. Anything we can do to lift tasks off of them is important. One of the big pain points that they felt were not serving kids with 504 and IEP services, but having the time to do the meetings well. We were seeing a lot of turnover in 504 coordinators at the schools. So Ms. Herron supervises a team. We added a 504 supervisor and 2 coordinators that work with our schools. They go out, they train staff, they work with them, they conduct meetings. They've conducted hundreds of meetings and trainings, and it's been a huge benefit to our schools. And so we're looking to expand that because it's a huge resource for our schools. We hired last year in ESSER, and we'll continue in GP this year, a reading interventionist specialist. We have 52 reading interventionists. What's important, though, is that we not just have reading interventionists, but we train them to use Wilson is the gold standard for teaching people to read. It's the gold standard for kids with dyslexia, right? We have a reading interventionist in our schools, and we need to make sure that they're trained and up to date on Wilson. And Kara Smits is one of the best out there. She was at Nanny Berry for many years, and she's just a phenomenal leader and literacy expert. Social workers. Our social, I can't say that. Our social workers, I can't say what you said in your presentation, Katie, publicly. Our social workers take thousands of calls and work with kids. The tragedies and trauma that our students deal with on a regular basis is immeasurable. And our social workers are there every step of the way for them and their families to help them navigate those. You can't put a price tag on the value of our social workers. We've all seen the Family Resource Center. We've heard the stories of the great work that they do, and will continue to work. Our student support counselors, our nurses. We literally had a kid whose life was saved a few weeks or about a month ago because of the presence of our school nurse. We have routinely really critical needs across the county. You know, we had a near tragedy last week at Portland East. Only by God's grace and quick first responders was that not more of a tragedy. I'm telling you, if you watch the video, I've never seen anything like it. I'm so thankful that she got up and walked away from it. But again, you had school staff, first responders, everybody there working together. Just amazing work. Our nurses were doing thousands of health screenings, helping kids get glasses. I think the number is something like about 33 to 40% of our EL students need glasses. And we're able to get those for them through our health screenings. Athletic trainers continue to be a huge need. This is going to be something that we're going to have to work hard to add or figure out a solution for over the next few years. We've got over 5,000 student athletes right now. We're adding girls flag football, and let me tell you, that sport's going to take off fast. 15% have to play for there to be a state championship, because right now it's an emerging sport. I think they'll have it in a year. Colleges are starting to add flag football as a scholarship sport. I think it's going to be hugely popular. We're going to increase the number of athletes. We're going to add lacrosse, not this year, but next year. Again, more athletes. You'll begin to see more and more sports, more and more extracurriculars, and that puts a huge strain on our athletic trainers. Preschool opportunities. Next year we'll have 30 classes across the county, over 500 students served. Again, the return on investment is these services are invaluable for what they provide for our kids. Our next big challenge is going to be this. How can we take the walls off school? This makes Katie nervous, not going to lie. We are not talking about safety and security. We are talking about how do we, the number one question that I get is, how can my child take aviation? They don't go to Liberty Creek. Talking to the aviation teacher at Liberty Creek, who's a friend of mine, he has some ideas about how we can expand that to the whole county. Aviation is one step. We've got to begin to come up with solutions to maximize the opportunities for students. How do we get, you know, we did this for decades where you could go to Portland and take shop classes part of the day. We're going to have to figure out the transportation part, right? Because the number one hindrance to students taking advantage of all the opportunities we have right now is transportation. You can have Vol State courses open to Sumner County students, and students from Gallatin High School about 3 miles away can't get there. We've got to figure out transportation. That's the number one obstacle. That's our challenge for this year, is how to figure out transportation. I think the future, Nissan has created a university. If you work for, if you're one of Nissan's suppliers or Nissan, they pay 16-year-olds up $18.50 an hour to come work on the floor. And if you stay with Nissan for 4 years, they'll pay you $85,000. They will pay for your 2-year or 4-year degree. They're going into high schools to create a work pipeline. I see hospitals doing this. I see other big, like I see Meta doing this. I see a lot of other industries. Like I think this will be, I see us shifting towards more of an apprenticeship model, like we had for about the first 1900 years of human society. I think that's coming fast, and we need to be ahead of one of the ways we can innovate is be ahead of that curve. Because we can, I think, you know, like what we see now is there are a huge number of high school students post-COVID that are disaffected. They don't see any value in Algebra 2, right? They ask you, when will I ever use an imaginary number? And I say, I have no idea. I've never used an imaginary number. I remember vaguely what it is, but I've used lots of things I've learned in school, but I can't say, you know, 90% of the jobs in the United States require a mastery of Algebra 1. We've got to start asking hard questions and advocating for a change in what it requires to be a graduate of schools. California's having a major battle right now. Silicon Valley wants all California high school students to take a data science class. The colleges want them to continue taking Algebra 2. They're having a huge battle, and you know, what happens in California and Texas tends to trickle out to the rest of the country. Hopefully we're going to begin to see, I think our leadership in Tennessee is open to some flexibility. It's going to require some movement on the university level, but I think you'll begin to see us begin to be able to, through offering more dual enrollment classes. You're going to see Vol State's committed to offering a ton of new CTE dual enrollment classes. One of the problems that we've had in the past is we couldn't get students that were interested in CTE, because they may not have the 18 to 21 on the ACT, they're taking that off where they can take introductory CTE classes. Every student that's successful in Sumner County Schools should make an 18 or higher, right? It's just hard if you've got a kid that doesn't want to go to college. It's hard to convince them that 3 hours taking ACT is a good use of their time. They're not a 12, 13, 14 on the ACT. They're significantly higher. They just don't have much motivation. If you've raised a junior, I don't have to say anything. You know, if you've raised a second semester senior, you know this last 2 weeks is brutal. It's not brutal, it's very exciting. It's tear-filled, but it's also really hard to motivate them to get them across the finish line. All right, giant steps into the future. We have made huge investments in our schools. If you walk around our schools, they have cutting-edge equipment in every area. Our schools are using their ISM grants to upgrade and add and expand our CTE career paths. It's really beautiful. If you ever get a chance, go to the Gallatin CTE Rotary Banquet. It's exciting to see the great things that you can go to anywhere, but Gallatin has a CTE themed banquet that's really exciting to watch and see. Innovation, we're really excited about this. We created Teach Sumner, our own teacher university. We will be certifying about 75 teachers this year, I believe, Justin, is that right? About 75 new teachers. We've got a program with Austin Peay for elementary that we're adding this year. So it's not part of our Teach Sumner. We're utilizing title funds to create an incentive for elementary teachers. It's going to cost the teaching candidates about $500 a semester to get their teaching certificate. That's exciting. We're going to continue, what's that?
It's also SPED.
And also SPED, elementary and SPED. Yes, thank you, Norma. Y'all, I don't know how to say it except to say it. Colleges have dropped the ball on recruiting and supporting us in teacher education. You know, my daughter is a junior at Alabama. She's majoring in art history and math. I'll never understand somebody saying, I can't wait to take differential equations. But she decided that next year she might, because you know she always dallies with possibly being a teacher, she decided that for one of her math electives, she would take math, or was it, I think it was algebra for secondary education. They told her when she called that she couldn't take it because she didn't have the prereq, which was, I think, like pre-algebra for educators. And she's like, I've taken Calc 4. And they said, well, you won't know any of the cohort. She's like, it's a math class. You don't sit around and chat in a math class. You do math. You know, there was every obstacle thrown in her path that could be there, you know, to discourage her from becoming a teacher. And that's pretty commonplace now in our universities. I'm thankful for the state of Tennessee and our legislature for giving us the flexibility to create this program. We anticipate that over the next 10 years, at some point, we'll recruit about 85% of our teachers through Teach Sumner. It's going to grow that fast. And it's good. You know, we're able to go out and recruit second career people, and we're able to bring them in and help them get teaching certifications without having to take on a lot of debt, which helps them stay with us. We're able to take a lot of, what's really exciting, we're seeing a lot of our teaching assistants that had college degrees but not SPED endorsement, being able to get certified to teach and move into our special education and regular education classrooms. Got some other things that I'm so dying to tell you, but I can't until after this meeting next week. So next week I hope to have some more good news. We provide direct support to our schools. So we are adding 6 assistant principal positions. You know, I mentioned earlier that principal is the #1 pressure point in our school system in terms of what they carry. We're adding 6 additional assistant principals: Gallatin High School, Liberty Creek High School, William Burris Elementary, and Venus Stewart Elementary. We're also adding 2 itinerant APs to meet school needs. What we saw with what Ms. Herron's team did with 504s, we saw that, you know, like, what do you do if you have an AP that's out? What do you do? Some of our principals at our smaller elementary schools have an entire day and a half of nothing but 504 and IEP meetings. They don't set foot in a classroom, they do meetings. If you've ever done 6 meetings back to back to back, you're just not fresh at the end of them. So we're trying to find ways to have some itinerant APs that will move around the county and address needs. You know, we have some schools that have a combination of behavior classes and pre-K classes. That's an additional 30 to 40 IEP meetings for the school. And we want to provide not just, you know, I want you to hear me, it's because we want those meetings between the school and the parents to be productive and positive and helpful for the kids. And you can't do that when you've got somebody doing an extra 30 or 40 meetings a year. And as you saw from what I showed you earlier, our numbers are going to continue to increase. 38 additional school positions, 25 additional certified teachers and counselors, 6 classified office staff and teaching assistants, 5 custodians, 1 lead educator, and 1 nurse. The lead educator and nurse go to White House Intermediate as a new school. 6 additional district level staff to support schools. Really excited about this. The incident at Portland West highlighted our need. Our athletic trainers, our coaches, our extracurricular activity leaders are all asking to be CPR trained. We used to work through a program with Vol State. They're just as overwhelmed as we are, and it's become very hard for us to do the CPR training that our school system requires. It's a major fear of ours that we're going to have an incident like at Portland West and we won't have anybody there CPR trained. CPR is not the only thing that this nurse trainer will do. She will take over training our CERT teams that respond to student emergencies. She'll provide health and wellness training and different things, but we want to provide top level training to our nurses, to our athletic trainers, to our coaches, to our extracurricular leaders. Really excited about this position. For us, we're going to have to make a real strategic investment in Teach Sumner, right? Dr. Alexander and a couple of other people have carried the weight of this. Mariah Torres in the instruction department, they've carried this weight for a couple of years now as we've gotten accredited by the state. With 75 people, we're basically running our own college of education. We've got to have extra hands to be able to get this work done. A grant administrator, as funds get tighter, there are millions and millions and millions of dollars that are out there for us to write grants in school safety, in instruction, in career technical education, in teaching, all kinds of things. There's going to continue to be more grants. You have to have somebody. Right now, we write as many grants as we can, but it's 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th on the list of everybody's job. We got to have some support to maximize our funds. That position will pay for itself 3 or 4 times over, I would imagine, almost immediately. Elementary guidance and leadership coach. Elementary guidance, we have Bobby Kane, who, if you've ever worked with Bobby Kane as our counselor coordinator, she's really the best there is. She is absolutely tremendous. We have 52 counselors, or 52 schools. That's a lot of counselors. She's requested each year for the last 2 years support for elementary. Elementary counseling is very different than high school counseling. This is something where it'll help coordinate what goes on in our elementary school guidance counselors with the work that Ms. Brown is doing, the work that Ms. Kane is doing. It's a direly needed extra set of hands as we see the needs of our kids continue to balloon. The other thing, the leadership coach part, is to work with Dr. McClard, who is our leadership supervisor in the instruction department. We've built quite a strong leadership program. We are also adding a lot of new leaders, and we just have retirements and other things like that. You have to constantly invest in your leadership. Right now, we have 1 person supervising administrator and leadership in the county. We got to have some extra support to make sure that we're doing the best we can to develop our next generation of leaders. Our county athletic director, this has been part-time. Mr. Mike Brown is retiring again. He has been an absolute trooper for us because he has worked way more than he had to get us over the hump. We're in a need now to have a full-time county athletic director. We have more new coaches. They need training. They need support. We have more new athletic directors. Our nurses and athletic trainers have to work together. You're going to see a lot of integration with Ms. Herron's staff and the athletic trainers, just in terms of communication. That takes a lot of coordination. There are things, you know, I'll tell you an example. I had 2 coaches from Hendersonville High School came and met with me, and they did a Patriot Night. So they went out and they raised $8,000, and they bought girls and boys basketball uniforms that were camouflage. And they played Paige. And the Page coach liked it, and he called his county athletic director. And the next day, Adidas sent or ordered for all the Williamson County schools camouflage uniforms so they could have a Patriotic Day. That's because they had somebody that could go around and work with vendors. You know, we've got a huge number of athletic facility needs over the next few years. We're adding lacrosse, we're adding flag football. The support is desperately needed at the school level. We're adding a secondary fine arts. We have a large number of new band directors, and this was fascinating. One of my former colleagues, that's an assistant principal now, that was formerly a band director, told me, he said, you know, Scott, he said, you would never hire somebody fresh out of college and make them a head football coach. That would be crazy. He goes, we hire kids all the time out of college and make them band directors, and we give them a 6-figure budget, and parents and band kids, and they have to go to middle school. We do all this stuff. As important as it is to have athletics, we are desperately in need of a fine arts coordinator. Mr. Daniels and I have been talking for years about an all-county theater performance, you know, because we have Gallatin High School, Liberty Creek, Beach, they always do, Hendersonville, they always do big musical productions, right? A lot of the other schools don't have enough boys that can sing. If you're at Portland, White House, or Westmoreland, and they're doing a musical, and you're a boy, you don't have to be able to sing. You got a part. You know, but some of those kids can really sing and perform. They don't get the same opportunities. So it goes back to taking off the walls of the school. How can we provide some opportunities? If you went to the elementary fine arts performance at Gallatin High School, it was absolutely amazing. And we got to have somebody to coordinate all that. And so we're trying to add, the 0.5 for elementary is we're shifting some responsibilities around inside the instruction department. The 0.5 for secondary fine arts is a new add. But this is long overdue. We invest in people. 88% of the positions that we're adding are going directly to the school. 12% are focused at the district, and most of those 12%, as you saw, are directly connected to serving our schools and helping our principals. Any questions about that so far? I've gone on for quite a while. Okay. All right, investing in our staff. I love these pictures. If you see our bus drivers on the left, what a family. You know, let me just tell a story. The other night, the flood. Ken Widener texted me at 9:30 at night, and he said, can you get 2 buses? We got a lot of houses we got to evacuate. We need to be able to get them to shelters. I called Mr. Grasty, and within 10 minutes, we had Mr. Grasty and another bus driver, supervisor, got out and drove for hours to get kids, to get the families to safety. Our transportation team is amazing. The maintenance picture to the right is a little bit old, but I love this picture. This is when Waverly flooded a couple years ago. If you go to Humphreys County Schools, and they find out you're from Sumner County, they'll hug you. Our maintenance team did extraordinary work for Humphreys County, and this is a great picture of the work that our maintenance team does. And they did it, you know, they were in White House High School at 3 a.m. getting the water out of the school. Those kids went back, and I can tell you, my wife's classroom was affected. Contrary to what you might read on Facebook, my wife's classroom was the first one to flood. And she texted me and said, my room's flooding. I was like, you better find somebody closer than me, because I'm not going to be much help. But you know, Ellis and White House flooded. We lost an awning at Portland, but maintenance was all over it. White House High School, the rooms were scrubbed and sanitized and everything. Everybody was back in quickly. Here are our current challenges that our employees face. Our unemployment rate is 2.6% in Sumner County. Everybody that wants to work can work, almost anywhere. And that creates an intense amount of competition. And right now, the only way you get employees is paying them. You know, we can spend vision and we can talk message. Message and vision, calling, don't pay for bread and gas. And so if you look at, this came at the Grace Place Ministries lunch. Katie and Frankie were there. They showed a statistic that if you're a single parent in Sumner County right now and you want to own a home, it costs you $71,000. The average retail wage in Sumner County currently is $18.24. These are the other challenges. Gasoline's up 47.8% from a couple years ago. Groceries 21%, dining out 21%, baby food 30%. Rent, 21%, electricity, 28.3%, airfare, 33%. These are nationally, this isn't just Sumner County, but it's comparable here. These are what our employees, these are the pressures that our employees face. This is the cost and everything that we proposed to you in January. This was Mr. Ott's study, and I want to, Mr. Ott's not here tonight, but I want to commend his team and the committee because they did exceptional work. If you remember, we hadn't done anything like this since the 1990s. And we got a very thorough picture of where we need to go. And this was the cost of it. $18 an hour minimum starting salary for classified staff. That was about $23 million. $50,000 starting teacher pay, $15 million. $10,000 increase for SPED behavior RTF, $4.7 million. RTF is RT Fisher. Coaching supplements, sub-pay, academic, non-academic supplements. That total was $45.2 million. Now, I'll be honest. We had hopes that our funding would come in significantly higher, but at the end of the day, we got to go with what we got. I am thankful the legislature increased the money that they sent us. The county increased the money that they sent us. You know, we'll always take more. I think at one of the budget hearings they had over at the county, someone suggested that we build a new Gallatin High School, and they called me to see what I thought. I was like, I'm all in, $150 million. You got it? We'll break ground. I'd love to build a brand new Gallatin High School. All in on it. But you know, the reality is we have to look at what we have and live within our means and do the very best we can for our people. I think this is the goal. I hope we can get there next year. Let me show you what I think is doable and walk you through some of these scenarios and show you what it costs and what it does. If we increase our pay for this is, and I want to point out, this is step one, right? Like, this is not a crazy ask for our employees, right? We're talking, I can't remember the exact number from Mr. Ott's presentation. I want to say something like 55% of our classified employees are in that top part of the box where they make on average about $12.55. Okay? If you remember back here, the average retail wage in Sumner County is $18.24. Many of the fast food and retail businesses pay every day. You can walk out to your car and draw your paycheck. Our employees wait for a month. All right, so what if we take the starting pay as our first step this year? If we go from $12 to $16 an hour, it's going to cost $12.8 million with a step for a year's service. What that means for a 190-day employee, this would be your teaching assistants, school nutrition staff, bus drivers, bus assistants, CDC assistants, resource assistants. Again, I thanked Ms. Brown's team earlier. Let me also thank our HR team because they did tremendous work to help figure out all these numbers. That's a $5,700 raise. It's about 34%. Okay? Our 200-day employee average raises, that's attendance clerks, library clerks, guidance clerks, Title I parapros, office clerks, and lab coordinators. It's about a $6,470 raise. It's pretty uniform in between those two amounts. It fluctuates based on the number of days you work and the number of hours you work. We have some 4-hour employees, some 7-hour employees, some 7.5-hour employees. It's all across the board. We have 190-day employees, 200-day employees, 210-day employees, 220-day employees, 240-day employees, 260-day employees. 230, missed that. Let me encourage you, if you're going to ask a question, please, please, please don't ask Ms. Brown what the average pay is for one of these groups, because it's all, I mean, we spent most of the last week calculating to get these numbers. This will roughly, you know, when we push out the scales, everybody will be able to calculate what they're paid, but, you know, obviously if you work 260 days, your raise can be a little bit larger because you're working more days, you're working more hours. But that's kind of where we are. Okay. I desperately wanted to get to 50,000 this year for teachers. We just, the money's not there. We have to go there next year. We've got to get half of it this year. We've got to go to 47.8. To put this in perspective, I want to compare classified and certified for a minute. This would be a $2,200 pay increase for brand new teachers. Okay, one of the things that Ms. Brown and Mr. Ott's teams worked on, you saw that the HR compensation study hadn't been done since the 90s. We used to do this crazy pay scale for many, many years in Sumner County. where you had a county portion of your salary and a state portion of your salary. And so what the game was to announce that you were giving certified staff a 5% raise. But what you did was give a 5% raise on the county part, which was about like 18% of your pay. So you get like a $35 raise, but you got a headline of a 5% raise, and you get about 1 or 2% from the state. We did away with that when Dr. Phillips came. Now we just have a straight pay scale, but that pay scale had so many iterations over so many different years that there were some irregularities. You know, like sometimes you might get a 0.9% raise on a step. Sometimes you might get a 1.2% raise. Sometimes you might get a 2.3% raise. And it broke at weird points. So what we did when we did this compensation study and work is we smoothed those steps out where they're consistent across the entire pay scale. So a starting teacher's pay will go up $2,200. The average raise amount for all teachers is a little bit, it's $3,023. That costs $9.4 million with a step. I also want to point out that starting teacher pay has increased by $11,700 since January 2020. That's about 35%. So classified, we've added $1 an hour for the last 2 years, and then we've done steps previous to that. So we gave raises, but we didn't increase classified pay at the same rate that we increased certified pay. So it's a good year to catch up. We've got to catch up, because if you remember from Mr. Ott's presentation, you know, there was a time when most of our classified staff had been with the county for 25, 30, 35 years. That's changing rapidly because we're you know, people are retiring, and we're also getting, you know, if you've got that upper box with 50, you know, where you got about 55, 56% of your workforce, and they're in that $12 to $13 an hour range, we're just going to churn them constantly. And that's bad when you have to background check, train, because we want people in our building. Remember, these are people that are working every day with our kids. We want the best people. Okay, what we're still going to do $10,000 increase for all SPED. I want to be really clear here. Okay, all SPED, all behavior, all RT Fisher certified staff. That includes special education teachers, behavior teachers, speech language pathologists, school psychologists, RT Fisher certified staff, and SPED social workers. Speech language pathologists, or excuse me, SLPs and school psychologists, a lot of the pressure that principals feel on having a large number of meetings every day for IEPs and everything is the fact that we don't have enough school psychologist coverage. And we haven't been in the same ballpark as other counties in paying school psychologists. Ms. Dam has done yeoman's work to get coverage to all of our schools consistently. But the only way we're going to get more school psychologists is to pay more.
Sorry. Going back just to the teacher pay.
Yes, sir.
How are we going to compare now with our neighboring counties? Like, I know, I think Robertson's at 50, right?
Robertson's at 50. Metro will be above 50. I would presume Williamson will probably go. Williamson sometimes lags. I don't know if they're going to 47.8 or 50. Rutherford's probably at 50. I think Lebanon City went to 50. We'll be a little bit behind.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm surprised that we didn't go ahead and do the, I guess, the 50,000 this year. Are you concerned about teachers? Because I heard at Gallatin today, I guess they're short 3 math teachers, and then they're not interviewing. And I guess they don't have any candidates right now.
Yeah, I'm very concerned. You know, if y'all want to go to 50, when we get to the end, if I can, Mr. Lacey, if I can come back to that question. I'm very concerned about all this, because I would feel way better if we could go to 18 for classified and 50 for teachers, because I can tell you next year when the state law kicks in, if we go to 50, it's why we've got to continue to take steps. Because if the state minimum becomes 50,000 next year, in the ring counties of Nashville, in the next couple of years, we need to be at 55. But you can see going up $2,200 on starting pay is $9.4 million. So, you know, if we go up another 1,000, it's 4-point-something million. To get to 50, you're talking 18 million. We've got to keep taking bites. And some of this on the classified side, you know, like, I want to be clear, because when I was on the commission, it drove me crazy, even with my friends that kept saying the old commission, right? Now I'm part of the old commission. I get blamed for all kinds of stuff. So that's just politics. But this isn't a problem that emerged in any of the previous, like this is a problem on the classified side that's been going on for 40 years. We've made huge increases in classified pay. You know, I think in 2010, 2011, most of our classified employees made minimum wage. We had people that had worked 30 years for the school system made $9 an hour. We've come a long way, but inflation and wage pressure in the market have pushed up what classified employees are making, and we've got to make that jump there. I will say, when I'm talking to principals, Mr. Lacy, just anecdotally, they're seeing better candidates. I think the 10,000, the reason we're keeping the 10,000 for SPED is because, one, a SPED teacher teaches the same as everybody else, and then they have a caseload of 15 to 20 students on top of it. They are doing an extensive amount of work in addition to their teaching job, and I'm happy for us. The only shot we have of recruiting special education teachers is to pay more than everybody else. And I think we've seen some applicants looking at us from other counties and things like that because we're doing that. But I mean, you know, to your point, I'm very concerned about our competition with other districts. It's a heavy lift to get to 50,000. We've got to get there next year, and we're probably going to look to go a bit higher than 50,000 next year. I really think you're looking, ideally, we'd want to be around 54, 55. But at the same time, we've made huge progress. You know, I mean, when I started teaching in 1999, I was teaching in Atlanta, and I made $12,000 more than my mom, who'd been teaching 20 years, and I was a first-year teacher. We've come a long way. We've closed the gap with other states in a lot of ways, but you know, the thing is, just like with classified employees, we're catching up, but we may not be catching up as fast as the market's moving up. Now, I think I can pitch some options at the end of what we can do, and you know, I'm happy if we want to approve a higher pay rate, and I can go advocate and push. You know, right now where we are in the year, we're not going to be able to get any more money from the legislature. I'm happy to go speak to the county commission and ask for more money. That's definitely something we can talk about. It's going to be something we're going to talk about at some point. Yeah. Okay, let me jump, let's see. Yeah, okay. Another thing that we're going to do, I'm really excited about. Our insurance trust is healthy enough. You know, we didn't do a health insurance increase last year. We ate that cost. Okay, I'll be honest, I don't understand actuarial science, okay? But I sat in a room with a lot of people that really understand actuarial science. And what they said is, even though your reserve is healthy, you have to continue to catch what the rising costs are, or else you'll be in a bind in 5 years. So we're going to have to increase what health insurance costs our employees. But what we can do, because our reserve is so healthy, is give everybody, like we're thinking in December, we'll have to vote on this once all that gets set in July or August when it comes to the board, when we set the insurance rates for because remember, that's a January to December thing. That's the way our health insurance runs, so we'll set that in July or August. But what we want to do is, whatever that rate increase is that we have to do, we'll waive 1 month's cost, and that'll offset. So it won't cost our employees anything extra if they're on health insurance. Like if you're not taking our insurance, you won't get a bonus for Christmas, but you will get a 1 month benefits holiday just for health insurance. But that's the most expensive part of our benefits package. You know, dentistry or dental and vision, all those are, you know, relatively cheap compared to what health insurance costs. Okay, so looking at this cost, to go to $16 an hour, $47,800 starting teacher pay, $10,000 increase for SPED, behavior and RT Fisher, coaching supplements, sub pay, academic, non-academic we removed the postseason. We've never done postseason supplements for coaches before. The compensation committee did a great job doing what, you know, comparing us to what other districts did and coming up with that. But given where we are and how we want to push as much money into the hands of as many of our teachers and staff as we can, we thought it was wise to increase the coaching supplements to honor the work that they do, but to also lower the, remove the postseason. coaching supplements additional. And then the academic and non-academic supplements we left the same from the January proposal. If you want to go from this step one to what Mr. Ott presented in January, it's a little bit over $16 million. That's what would be increased. So if you want a speculation, this is sheer speculation on my part. I know county finances pretty well and I understand the tax rate pretty well. Looking at the valuations, again, I shouldn't say this, but I'm just going to give you an idea. I think a penny will come in somewhere probably around 900,000. Okay, we get a little bit less than 61% of every penny. So you can do the math and see what the tax increase would be to get to fully fund our phase one. I mean, if we went to the January plan, the 45 million, that's a really heavy lift to ask anybody to do. Now, I'll be honest, most people wouldn't even notice it because, you know, like, I don't know if everybody was, if you got sticker shock when you opened your thing. And I'm going to do, if Mr. Schoaf is listening, I'm going to do him a solid here, right? Because I know people are watching this. When the state sets, or when the county sets the certified neutral tax rate, that is not a tax increase, right? They take what the property values are and they set the tax rate based on the revenue we received last year. The problem with that for the county is that does not count. There will be probably 5,000 appeals about what property's worth. You'll lose at least a penny and a half of tax revenue because of the appeals and the adjustments that you won't know about because they'll go all the way to, you know, August, September. It'll take a long time for them to resolve all those appeals. You don't catch any inflation, right? Inflation's about 6 or 7% over the last few years. So you're basically, when you go to the revenue neutral rate, you're basically getting less money than you got last year. That's a flaw in the Tennessee system. I wish that there was a way to build in something because otherwise if you're on the county commission and you raise it a penny, you get accused of raising taxes. Not going to say I've ever experienced that, but I did raise taxes twice. You know, it's an unfair thing for commissions because they need to be able, because asphalt doesn't cost any less, salaries don't cost any less, ambulances don't cost any less, sheriff's vehicles don't, school buses don't cost anything less. All the stuff that we've shown you tonight doesn't cost any less, but your revenue comes in lower and doesn't catch any inflation. It's really unfair for county commissions. So, you know, that's the dilemma that the budget committee finds themselves in having to address as they set, the county commission as they set the tax rate. You can do the math if you want to figure out what a 16 or 17 cent boost would cost. I'm in no way suggesting that. I'm just saying the only way to move off this number is to ask the county commission for more revenue. They are catching, I will tell you, we've done a great job over the last 8 to 10 years as a county moving everybody together. The school system and the sheriff's office and our first responders and all the county offices, we've all worked together and kind of stuck together. It shows off when you see things like natural disasters. You know, Ken Widener calls us to get buses because he knows we'll be there for him. You know, the sheriff calls us if he needs something and we call the sheriff if we need something. You know, we had a false alarm yesterday. And, you know, we made calls to the sheriff's office and a city police department, and they had folks on campus within minutes to help us. That comes from working together, and we've always tried to stick together. I'm hesitant to recommend going over and asking for a lot more revenue from the commission because I know they're trying to take care of the roads, they're trying to take care of the sheriff's office, they're trying to take care of first responders, who also, if you see their presentations, they're going to all look very similar to this. Because we're, you know, talking to Mr. Ellis, you know, Wilson County jumped highway pay up tremendously, and he's lost 25% of his workers over the last few months. So they've got a heavy lift on the county side too. I prefer trying to work together and getting a big bite. But realistically, we can certainly send a budget over there that funds the full 45 million. I would rather get what I think we can manage and take a huge bite out of our compensation needs and then fight like crazy together next year to get as much revenue as we can to take another big bite out. I think this is but I mean, I also want you to look, is like, as you look at this is, this is a substantial bite. This is a 33 to 35% increase in employee pay. Like, I'm really proud of this. I always want everything, right? Like, I like to win. I'll be honest with you, my first inclination is like, let's fight. But you know, when I step back, it's like, let's work together and figure out how we can do the best and the most for all the employees in the county. And let's work together. And I think we can do this while making, you know, going from $12 to $16 is 2/3 of the way there to 18 in 1 year. We haven't seen an increase like this in classified pay in a decade. Okay, so there's the cost. All right, investing in the best school. Oh, I'm sorry.
While we're talking about pay, how does our classified pay compare to other? Do we have a what are you know, our surrounding districts doing with starting pay?
Yeah, it's all over the place. And some of it is, you know, for instance, like Wilson County, not just the school system, but the county as a whole, they pay 100% of an individual's health insurance, but 0% of a family plan. So if you put your family on the insurance, your premium goes to like $1,400 a month, where ours is about $414, you know, if you have your family on there. That's a significant boost. So, you know, we can get hourly wages, but hourly wages sometimes hide. A lot of counties have gone to this funding model of 100% for the employee, nothing for the family, where we're at 80-20. We pay 80% for individual and family. So our benefits package is pretty much top of the line. But of course, for classified, you got to try to get that classified salary up enough so they can afford the insurance. And this is one of the things that we're making a bigger bite into. It's hard for me to say, because some things like for instance, Metro pays way more for bus drivers. They pay more for everything. Robertson probably pays more for bus drivers, but less for some of the other. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of like when you ask Ms. Brown to calculate. It's like, you know, are we comparing apples to apples? Because some of their employees are $240, where ours are $190. You know, we may pay a higher hourly wage, but work less days, and they may pay a lower wage, but work more days. So, I don't even know. There's so many classified jobs in the school system. I don't know.
But really, at the end of the day, we're saying we're going from a $12.55 minimum to a $16 minimum.
We're going from a 12 to 16.
Is it 12?
The average is 12.55.
12.55. Okay. 12 is currently the lowest, and 16 will be the lowest going forward.
And I think for a lot of those jobs, our competition is.
That's what I'm saying. The local.
It's more like
part-time.
Taco Bell and Gap and different things like that, more so than it is driving to Trousdale County or something. Hey, let me say this. I want to say this. We haven't, you know, we'll have to figure out when we're going to do my contract, Mr. Brewer, and I need to talk. But my contract says that I'm supposed to receive the same raise as the teachers. I'm going to forego. I'm not going to take or accept a raise this year. Right? This is more important. I'm good. I'm making enough money. It's more important to take care of our people. So that's, you know, I'm not saying that for any kind of gain or anything. I just think it's an important thing for us to do and look at, because I'm more concerned about those folks getting them from $12 to 16, and from, you know, 45 whatever it is to 47.8, 45.6 to 47.8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Langford, for what you just said. I appreciate that a lot. I've had a few nutrition managers reach out to me, and I guess they're a salaried position. So every time we've ever increased classified pay, they're not included in that month.
Yeah,
they are.
Can you, Mr. Brown, do you know? Are you asking what the raise is for them?
Right. I'm just making sure that they're being considered in this compensation package.
Yeah, it's the same rate as.
Mr. Ott's not here to address that, but I do know Mr. Ott is looking at, they are currently exempt, but based on the wage and hour laws, they may no longer be exempt. So, but they have also, they're not on a scale, but classified employees still get a 2% if they're exempt, because that was the average of that step.
Let us get you an answer. We tried on all those non-exempt, they're not on scale. We tried to match this.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure they're scooped
Yeah.
up as well.
They are.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that, we didn't want one group of employees to get $6,000, another group to get, $900.
Mr. Lacy?
Yeah, I watched our May school board meetings, I guess, for our budget meeting and then our actual voting session. And I remember Dr. Phillips, he made the statement that we had a real strong school system. Financially, we're really strong. And he made the statement that you don't create a reoccurring expense with one-time money. I really don't like the fact that we're using our fund balance to create a reoccurring expense.
Yeah.
What would happen next year if we did that? If the county commission would not give us the $26 million, what would happen then? With that, I guess we'd have to pull it out of our fund balance again. It would cause a big fight. I mean, I don't know if that would be wisdom.
Yes. I think that's a great question, Mr. Lacy. Let me see. Yeah. Here's what I think that I can assure you that as a first-year director, I don't want to burn our fund balance, right? Because we're going to have to. Ms. Brown and I spent 2 weeks. I mean, at one point we considered becoming Thelma and Louise, to be honest. We thought about driving off. Not off a cliff, but off. Because I'm thinking, like, I don't want to do this for the exact reason that you said, Mr. Lacy. Dr. Phillips is always right on money things. He's never wrong on that stuff. He's a genius at it. I mean, I've seen him look. In 2015, I saw him take a napkin and write out what we needed to do to build everything we did the next 8 years. He's a genius at that. So he's absolutely right. But if I walk back through some of these things, like if we don't make this jump now, retail in our area is already at $18.24 and unemployment is still at 2.6%. Next year, they're going to be at $18.75 or $19. A couple of years ago, that number was probably $16 or $15. I think one of our principals said that her son works at the Chick-fil-A at Glenbrook and makes more than her head custodian. And her son's 17 years old. We're going to get farther behind, and then whenever we take the bite, it's going to be even bigger. Just like if we, on teacher pay, if we don't get half, I mean, we have to get half of it. That's in TISA. But if we don't, if we did a $1,000 raise, we're going to have to get what we didn't do this year plus next year. I think that if, unless we hit some kind of crazy recession, the state is growing at a pretty rapid rate. I think the legislature is going to have some flexibility. I plan on, I was sitting next to Leader Lamberth last night at the White House High School Honors Night, and I started talking to him about that we're going to need more money next year. I've already talked, Mr. Schoaf and I have had some preliminary discussions trying to project out, because they're in the same boat we are. The good news is we've got healthy enough reserves to be able to do this. What it means for us locally is, I can remember back in the fall, Mr. King was asking questions about our reserve and, how do you estimate, like, what do you spend out of the line? We never want to be in a position where we spend 100% of what's budgeted in the line. That's not good for the long-term solvency of the district. We're usually around 93%, 94%, somewhere in there. We're going to try to squeeze and get to 90 because we want to squeeze as much as we can. I've already told my team the other day that any vehicle purchases, anything like that, have to come across my desk. We're going to talk to our principals. We're going to talk to everybody about we are going to squeeze money because we got to be good stewards of what's given to us. And that's I just like Mr. Lacy, I share your concern 110%. But we're at a position now where we have principals acting as custodians. We have high schools with 2 custodians. We've got our largest high school principal, Dr. Becker, working the cafeteria cashier line a lot of days. We cannot continue delivering the great quality of school that we've delivered unless we take care of our people, right? We've got classified staff right now that are taking on 2 or 3 extra jobs in the school system, working extra hours and drawing overtime, not necessarily because they want to, but because they love their school and they see the need. At a certain point, you know, we hit this during COVID. We were stipending teachers to do a lot of extra things and teach classes and things like that. And we hit a certain point where they were like, I'm not doing any more work. Like, I just want to be at home with my family. And we're hitting that, and we're burning out the people that we have. So, you know, I agree with you 100% on the risk. There is absolutely risk there. But I think the reward is that we've got to make, if we're going to do, if I go all the way back up to the top. How are we providing the best pre-K through 12th grade education for all Sumner County students? We got to invest in our people, and then we got to go fight to get the revenue to keep supporting.
But what do we do? Let's just say if they refuse, what would happen at that point?
We're fine this year.
I mean, next year.
I mean, we're gonna. I'm hopeful that. So, like, I think, like, if you look. Like, I think we'll get more TISA money. I think that local thing went up because they just shot in the dark last year. They had no idea what local contribution should be. They studied it this year and they figured it out. I don't think there'll be as much fluctuation in that. We will get better at these weights. There's also, I didn't mention this in there, we received about 2.9 million in there's an outcomes-based fund here for performance. There's a whole lot of incentives. We've got an instructional supervisor that next year is going to learn every outcome that we can get. And we're going to code everything and make sure we hit all those outcomes so we maximize our money. But we didn't have our bet, you know, we took a little step back on testing last year and we still received 2.9 million additionally in outcomes. We should receive more than that. So that 2.9 million will roll in. I think we'll get a significant amount. The legislature will have to at least give us this to get to 50,000. Okay, so I think you'll see an increase in state revenues, and we got to push to get as much from the legislature as we can. I think if you look, we're seeing on average an increase of about $7.8 million from the county. So you'll start adding those in. So, you know, that may be, you know, you're going to catch things like a full year of sales tax at Costco. Nobody goes in Costco now without spending $200. You know, you're going to continue to see Meta expanding. We've got other businesses that are moving here, and those be like, you know, when Meta opened that first building, they became the largest taxpayer in Sumner County. You know, when they opened that second building, third building, it's going to continue to grow. So if we can, you know, we're seeing more industries relocate, things like that. That's what we need to take the burden off property owners. But that's the kind of thing, you know, and I think that, you know, there's also the possibility, for instance, you know, it's always a little bit of, I don't want to go too much into it because it's like watching sausage being made. The county has a pool of money and we have a pool of money. A lot of times what we can do is, like, next year we're going to need capital money. You know, we can slide that number around a little bit and offset it with capital or vice versa. So there's some flexibility. I mean, I'll just say, you know, Mr. Shoaf has been great to work with on this. There's not a sense from him that, you know, they're trying to hammer the school system. He's trying to hammer the school system or anything like that. I think these conversations like this, because, you know, like, I'm being as transparent and open as I can. You're 100% right. There is risk in this budget, but there's more risk if we don't do it.
Would it trigger something like what happened, I guess, when Dr. Phillips was here after a year or two, and I had to close schools for a month? And
I think we only closed like a week.
Was it a few weeks?
Yeah, but that's a doomsday scenario. Nobody wants that. You know, I don't want that. That's a nuclear response. I don't think that, I mean, this may shock some people coming from me, but I don't think we're in that position anymore. I think it's just like every school board and county commission from time immemorial. Anytime you have a lot of change on one side or the other, it takes a year or two for everybody to work through the old commission, the old school board, and then everybody looks around and says, hey, we got to work together to do a lot of good things for people. And I think we're pretty close to that. I mean, I'll be honest, this isn't anything with the budget tonight. I was really encouraged at the education committee last week. We had a good vote on everything, getting our summer scholars money through and our money for White House Intermediate and libraries. Now we had a little setback last night. We're trying to address that at the full commission next week. But we've taken some big steps forward, I think, and I'm excited about that for the county.
Thank you, Mr. King.
Yeah, I got a question about, it sounds really loud in here. I don't know if maybe that's just me. Okay, so in previous budgets, we didn't have to turn it all the way down. But, in previous budgets, we had this item called projected undesignated fund balance.
Yeah.
Is the 26 million of reserves, is that the same thing? Would that be the same, considered the same
That's
thing?
that's actually what we're pulling out. Let me see, I've got a slide with it. Hang on one second. Let me find it.
If you're looking for the reserve amount, that right there, but you,
5 million, about 5 million. That's really conservative. It'll be higher than that.
so we used to have it was projected undesignated fund balance. And yeah, last year I asked about 37 million, and I believe the answer I got was that it was accumulated money projected to be available for budgeting that year. But that was not reserves, is that right? In previous budget, it was called projected undesignated fund
That is
balance.
reserves, yes.
That was reserves?
Fund balance, that is not budgeted. Projected undesignated fund balance, so that means that fund balance was not designated for any expenditure or any restriction of any sort, so that's the.
Okay.
So I'll give you an example, Mr. King. So for instance, like if you look at this slide, like we budgeted 7.5 million from the county additional.
Right.
Last year, we didn't know exactly what we were going to get when we built our budget. The 2012 Act requires us to send a budget to the commission in May, or before their June meeting.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that 7.7 million there, we budgeted the previous year's revenue, like we projected off of it to set our budget. The county gave us more money. So that 7.7 million rolled into our undesignated fund balance because it wasn't designated for anything. Like we didn't budget it. It
Okay,
just rolled
so
into fund balance.
So we had 37 million, but that wasn't reserve money. That didn't come out of reserves.
I mean, it's really like reserves are what's left after everything's spent.
Right.
So
my
fund balance is the part of the reserves.
What I'm trying to get at is, have we used reserves in the past in our budgets? Like if there's an expenditure, if our expenditures are greater than our revenues, have we kind of plugged the hole using reserves?
Yeah, we've done that for a couple of years. Yeah.
Okay, so using reserves is not new.
No, using this much is.
Okay. I mean, that was 37 million last year, and that was undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, let me show. If I can show you one thing, I may be able
Sure.
to clarify a little bit.
Yeah.
So basically, if you look at a significant amount of where we're using the fund balance this year, the reserves, is in our compensation. So we're taking about 29 million new dollars in compensation. Plus, if we look at what we're looking at projecting for capital next year with the athletic facilities, and we got to have some money in case we see a great deal on a piece of land that we're going to need at some point. We still got to buy buses, we got to buy equipment, we've got to continue safety initiatives. We're going to have to occasionally pave a parking lot or put a roof on a building. Now, we made huge strides and we caught up on a lot of capital projects this year, but we're going to budget 29 million. That's also pretty much coming out of your fund balance.
Okay. So,
but this won't be.
I'll come back.
Yeah, to Mr. Lacey's point, this won't be recurring.
Yeah. I'll come back to that. So when I was looking at the slide that you can go back to the slide that says projected reserve.
Sure.
It says beginning reserve 2023-2024, at 67.9 million. Is that, is there something, are we, is that not including, that's not the total amount of the comptroller, right? That's just what's available?
Well, that number included a whole lot of other things, like our insurance trust. And
What I'm saying is, from the comptroller reports that we had at the end of fiscal year 2023, we had 126 million in our fund balance.
Do you remember the presentation I did in September? And it
Right.
all those out. You'll see that 67 million on there very specifically.
Right, so there
all that other
was-
stuff, school nutrition, all of that other stuff.
Yeah.
So that will, I think, to look at that, that will explain where that 67 million is.
Just like we have to take on, and whatever we do, we have to keep, was it about $10 million we have to hold in reserve? Or 11 million we have to hold in reserve?
Right, it was 16 million last year.
Yeah.
So, but there was also this, 2 months operating expenditures. So is that minus those 2 months, that 67 million?
Because we would,
Well, that was the 67 million was what was available to us if we wanted to spend it. Those other dollars were in things like, like state law requires us, like our insurance trust, our school nutrition. There are a bunch of other accounts that are required to have reserves, and that's what pushes that comptroller number up.
Right, but as I recall from that presentation, and I got it here somewhere, but we were also holding 2 months of operating expenditures.
Well, that 67,
So-
about 55 million is 2 months of that.
So that was
67.
part of the 67.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't have 2 months with this. We won't have 2 months
Okay.
operating expenses
Yeah. So the beginning fund, the reserves is going to be 4 million.
for this year, for 24-25. It'll be more than that, but it won't be like 12 million. It'll be like 7 million probably. We'll be able to tell you that once the books are closed and we get the final of that.
But technically, that's just what's available for us. But when you say beginning, so that's not the total. We still have the appropriated amount required by the state
Yes.
in there, but we're definitely not going to have 2 months of operating expenses.
No.
Okay. After this, okay. I'll come back to this because I'm really curious and I'm just trying to.
look at page 8 of your budget book. That will give you that breakout.
The yellow book?
Yes.
The yellow book. Okay.
That'll give you a little bit, kind of what you're used to seeing again compared to last
Okay.
year.
Page 8. Right. Okay. All right, so I'm looking at it. Well, this doesn't reflect the full, what the comptroller reports, right?
Correct.
The 126 million at the end of fiscal year 23. Okay, so this is,
This is your general purpose budget,
okay,
not GP, not insurance trust, not
Okay.
the other funds.
I'm gonna mark this page, I'll look at it, but, so my other question, getting back to, and this was just getting back to the previous slide on capital projects. Can you explain that a little more? You were going pretty quick there, and my head was still thinking about reserves, but you said something about us needing to purchase some land?
No, I'm just saying, like, I wanted to have money in there as
Okay.
capital. If we don't need it for land, we can shift it to something else or just carry it into reserve the next
Okay,
year.
that doesn't include the 15.8 that we've allocated for stadiums and things like that. This is not including stadiums, right?
That rolled back into the amount. So
So that does include
basically, like, whatever's left of that 15.8 is in that.
in this number.
Yeah.
So that includes the 3 bleacher projects.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That will eat up, the projects in phase 1 will eat up a significant part of that 29 million.
Okay, because I mean, I was kind of thinking that was a separate deal.
Yeah.
And so which is why when I saw this, I thought, holy cow, that's the most we've ever had for capital.
Yeah.
But it
No, that
includes
that includes
that.
So,
Okay.
And that's going to be a significant expenditure. we'll have the bids back on the first three stadium projects
Yeah.
in June.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. King, Mr. Lancaster?
Well, that's gonna jump into my question, because that's my biggest question is, are we comfortable that that's, I mean, how comfortable are we that we'll pay for that? Because I mean, we've kind of got ourselves in a hole where we don't have a stadium, so we kind of have to have a.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see the majority, some of it just depend on where the bids come in. I'm hopeful that we've got enough, I mean, we should have enough to do the 3 footballs, the 3 stadiums, and start on the tracks. I'm hopeful that we've got enough to do Gallatin Station Camp and Beach. Go ahead and get those all knocked out and be done. But, you know, like with inflation and everything, I'll just be honest, like, you just don't know what it's gonna come in at. Now it's better, the prices have come down some, people are getting better bids. But, you know, I'm committed to getting those done as quickly as possible. I've had some conversations about, you know, the capital side that I feel pretty confident about.
Okay.
Ms. Andrews?
One, thank you to everyone who has spent time on this budget. I know it is a bear, and we are in a unique, we're in a unique situation, I think, kind of as you highlighted, you know, with 2020, with COVID, with things shutting down, the change in workforce has been huge. You know, I think, you know, we left 2020 with people making $8, $10 an hour, and then like you said, you know, it's not specifically for our classified employees. It's not the different counties that we're competing with. It's our local retailers, it's our local restaurants, and so forth.
Yeah, and I think too, Ms. Sanders, not to interrupt you, but another thing to remember is during COVID, unlike a lot of school districts around the country, we were able to pay our employees the whole time,
Right.
which helped us keep our employees.
Correct. But I think in order for us to continue to keep them, again, it's not that we're looking at surrounding counties specifically for our classified. We're looking at surrounding businesses, specifically, you know, your service, your retail industries and so forth. You know, Costco opened and they're paying cashiers $18.50 starting. That's hard to keep up with, you know, what we are asking of many of our classified, specifically, you know, janitors and so forth. Those are positions that most people don't want to do. You know, we have amazing maintenance personnel who we're competing with them is even more significant than, you know, the $16, $18 an hour. I am concerned that 16 is not going to be enough. I know it's a huge jump. I'm not gonna, you know, it's nothing to bat our eyelashes at, but then again, is it going to be enough? I don't know. And I know it's difficult for you to make the presentation considering what we had in January. It's difficult for me to, you know, consider having to have those conversations and go, well, I know we talked in January about 18, we're looking at 16. It's incredibly frustrating. I know I've already had some reach out to me. I know SPED is definitely positions that we desperately need. That's definitely something that we desperately need in our county, and they're hard to come by. It's hard work. But I also understand some frustrations with our core curriculum teachers who, you know, they're carrying the weight of the schools. That, you know, the scores and so forth is a big deal as far as, you know, when we get our rankings and teacher evaluations and so forth, and their frustrations on what's being expected of them, differentiating learning and different things like that, and then for them to also, you know, not have that compensation. So I think this is a great budget, but I am, you know, to hear too that we're about possibility of not, you know, providing school supplies. I think so many of our families have become to rely on that I think our teachers, it's taken a burden off of our teachers and buildings that they don't worry about whether or not those kids have those supplies, because the truth is, if the kids don't have the supplies, our teachers are going to pay for them. So, I know that, it's difficult just, as far as financial constraints and so forth, but I also know that we're one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Tennessee, and you get what you pay for. So I would like to see what the numbers would be for us to be able to incorporate those things back in. I guess it would be additional, I know originally we said 45 million, so additional 16 or whatever on that.
I think, Ms. Andrews, my concern there is I don't want to be in a position where we give a raise once, and then next year we're in a position where we have to lay off 400 people. That's my concern there, is to remain solvent. And I also think, just in terms of, like I spent, I was joking earlier about Ms. Brown and I, but the thing where, I'll be honest, like I considered it a personal failure that I couldn't get us to 18. And then they reminded me of the fact that, yeah, we didn't get to 18, but we're taking 2/3 of the bite, and something that's like you would literally have to add 10 or 12 years. Like classified employees, Jeremy went how many years without a raise? 5 or 6 years without a raise, 10, 12 years ago. We've given them a raise every year, and now we're looking at increasing pay by 35%. That's it. Sometimes you have to take the step you can take and be able to continue to pay people long term. And I think we have to be, I'll be honest, I'm disappointed. I wanted to get to 18. I've talked to hundreds of classified employees. I still want to get to 18, but my job is to make sure that we are redlining the district to get to where we're going. And it's going to be very tight for a couple of years as we recover. And that's just that's the reality of the world that we live in. But I'm at the same time, like I began to look at it, I'm like, okay, I didn't get exactly where we wanted to, but we got 2/3 of the way there, and we're talking about $5,800 to $6,100 for most of our employees on the classified side, and $11,700 for teachers over the last 4 years, plus looking at another 22. If we just go to 50, if we can go higher than 50, I'm all in for it. And I think the 10,000 for special education teachers, that we have to do that to be able to recruit.
And I don't disagree with any of that. I 100% don't disagree. And I know these are difficult conversations to have.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of it just has to do with the economy and the way it shifted, and it shifted rapidly. I feel like, previously we were on a good track, and we, kind of had a plan in place, and it shifted overnight. It was what it felt like. But like you said, we have good people. We've asked a lot of our people. And I think that's where it's frustrating is, whether it's this year or next year or the year after that, at some point, revenue neutral is not an option for the county. And that's a frustration that I have, is looking around and realizing we are, I'll say, the best school district in the state. We offer, as you put on the return on the investment of what we provide for our students is incredible compared. What we are, businesses that are looking at us, what we're able to offer, things that we're looking at for our students to even put them in better long-term situations as far as career-wise goes. It takes people to do that. And unfortunately, when I look across, you get what you pay for. And I'm not just talking about through our school district, but our highway department, our EMS workers, our sheriff's officers, all of that in Sumner County, we have been blessed, and we have people that serve, and they have servants' hearts. but at some point, they also have to support their families. And I think as a county, it is that we need to realize that we are asking, these are not volunteer positions, and we should not expect volunteer type work from people who are investing in our children and in our emergency services and the things that make Sumner County the best county in Tennessee.
Just piggybacking one thing, or I guess making sure I understand, because I know we'll have this asked, but in the budget for next year, the school supplies is in this year.
Yes,
Okay.
school supplies will be this year.
Yes.
We're talking a year out,
I think
because we have to
I-
budget them for next year, so.
Misstate that, and I just, or
I
I want to make sure I
misheard that.
misheard
Yeah,
that.
so August, we will have, the schools, we've already ordered them.
Okay.
You're saying
They're showing up.
potentially next year's budget, we would have to.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, it's
That would be a
always
lever we
something,
might have to pull.
like if we come in and we get a windfall that we don't anticipate, we can always look at adding it over the course of the year. You know, if we're good, like if we have money in instructional supplies or things like that, we can look at doing it next year, but we can't put it in the budget for, we're talking about the 25-26 budget.
Okay.
So you're talking August 25, not August 24. Yeah.
Okay.
They're in there for August 24.
Okay.
The second follow-up question though, when we talk about the 10,000 for SPED and,
Mhm.
and all those other teachers, are they also in the other bucket, or is that,
Mhm.
are they getting the, so in other words, if I'm trying to think how to say this, if a SPED teacher is second year next year, and say that's technically now 46 or
So
40,
if they went from like 46 to 48.
are they getting that and the 10,000?
Yeah, because they get the step because they worked a year. The state law is we have to give a step for teachers
No,
each year.
I'm just saying, is it
Yeah.
the starting teacher pay
It's
increase as
10,000
well
above,
as?
it'll be 10,000 above the current teacher scale. So you'll look at the current teacher scale, whatever is adopted. If it starts at 47.8, the
Okay.
starting for SPED would be
57,
57.8, yes. So every line would just be 10,000.
You would just do their
above.
degree and years of experience.
So they would get the,
Okay.
any increase plus the 10,000.
Because, I mean, you always have to think about, it.
So-
you're adding 10,000 to the pay scale. They've already worked this year, so they get the step, and then you're adding $10,000 to that, to the scale, to the new scale.
Gotcha. And so, you know, I look at it and, you know, it seems like, well, it'd make more sense to, on some things, to try to beef up that, but I see, I think what y'all are, the strategy is to beef that up, because the state's not gonna give you any money for that. But if we wait a year, you know, get the teachers up to what the state requires, then next year we know we'll get more funding from the state and we won't have to backfill. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, the coaching supplement thing for $1.5 million, I would rather say, hey, let's wait on that. Let's punt on that, or punt on maybe half of the special ed thing, and beef up the teacher, you know, go ahead and close that gap because we know it's coming. But that, you know, and I don't know, I'm sure y'all have had that same conversation.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, the problem is we're actually getting movement, we're getting applicants for special ed jobs, which we haven't had many in 3 or 4 years.
I
And that's
know
on the
a-
10,000.
And I know that's an impossible thing to find, and I'm not, you know, not saying that that's not deserved or anything like
Yeah.
that. That's why I was asking if it's, you know,
Mhm.
if it's double dipped, if you would say, well,
Yeah.
hey, well, if we did increase-
8,000 or something.
Yeah,
Mhm.
if you did
Yeah.
find a sweet spot in there.
I'll be, we're so threadbare now with CDC and special ed, like, I mean, they've worked magic for 3 years, but, you know, their team can't bear much more burden without staff.
Yeah, and I think that's the one question that somebody, you know, like me, that takes this and says, well, you know, why would we do that? Why would we come down on that and get that gap closed for everybody? But I think the strategy behind it would be, well, you know, go ahead and take that bite now, and then next year you know you can could jump that extra
Yeah.
amount because
Yeah.
you'll have the state piece of funds for that extra.
Yeah, it'd already be in the budget, because we're not gonna do 10,000 again next year. It'll be built into their pay scale.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I know Ms. Andrews was talking a little bit about the classified employees and the raise, and you've commented about, one of the challenges is competition is, local retail, Gap, places like that. I look at the certified professions, and I've been at a number of conferences on hiring and job fairs over the last couple of weeks, and I look at the 50,000, the 55 that we're saying that we need to get to, and there's a lot of competition for trained educators in the professional workforce right now. There's a lot of new technology rolling out, and they're looking for people that can train people on how to use that. And so if we don't start making that move soon, and I know the state's trying to help us do that, but that's going to be the biggest challenge. Private industry is going to come in, and our top educators, there's only so much that you can give before you get burned out. And at some point, as Ms. Andrews said, you have to start taking care of your family, and you have to be able to provide to them. I know right now we're looking for trainers for different programs and applications and different facets of our business, and I know what we pay, and I know the training experience we're looking at, and we'd hire somebody remote. I work out of Chicago. My office is in Chicago, but I work out of here. And so with remote employee opportunities, with private industry coming in, as a state, and I'm not knocking what we're trying to do, but even as a state, we're falling further and further behind on what starting salaries are for highly educated professionals. And if we don't stay ahead of that curve, while we may have the best right now working our school system or in our district office, they're going to start looking somewhere else eventually. Especially those that started out out of college, and they start hitting their 20, 25 years, and they've got their pension and everything else set up. They're going to start looking for those other opportunities. So, I appreciate what we're trying to do. I'd love to get to 50 this year. It just doesn't seem like the numbers work right now, and I appreciate there's a plan to help us get there. I would obviously advocate for trying to find a way to get there this year if we could, but in my mind, I continue to see that as a challenge. Yes, classified, with our local economy and local opportunities, but around here in Nashville with additional, private industry moving in, manufacturing plants, and even business like ours, we're going to come in and we're going to start taking those talented employees away, because there's a point where they just can't stay where they are. And the opportunities be greater somewhere else than it is within the school system.
Well, and I think, if you look at, let's see, oh yeah, this 71,000 for a single person to live in Sumner County. It's over 100 in Nashville. It's going to be interesting. We've had some conversations. Some of these we're already seeing is, forever, if you were in Portland, Westmoreland, Bethpage, it was hard to find math and science teachers. New families moving to Sumner County that are teachers are probably going to move to Bethpage, Portland, or Westmoreland. They're going to start picking up a more of a competitive advantage, because the difference in the price in homes is, my house appreciated $275,000 from the last appraisal, $300,000, something like that. And it's going to, you're right, it's going to be a continued upward pressure. I would anticipate we're going to have to see jumps like this consistently. I think the flip side too is that as more industry comes in, we collect 25% of the value on property and 40% on industry. So the more industry that we can draw, I'm thankful for the city of Gallatin, because they've done a tremendous job of drawing industry into the area with Meta and Beretta and some others. They've really done a tremendous job of getting industry here, and it's been helpful. I can assure you that, Meta has been a great corporate partner for us as a school system, but what they contribute in terms of taxes to Sumner County is big too.
Mr. King?
Yeah, so when we talk about raising pay for all teachers, does that include administrators?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a way to split that out? Because, I mean, there's a demand for teachers. There's not really, we don't have a shortage of people wanting, there's not a shortage of applicants for admin positions.
There's, you don't want to get behind on that. We're already, I'll be honest, I talked to a person for an admin job, and he sent me the pay scale from a neighboring district, and it was $25,000 higher than what we pay.
Okay.
It's across the board, and I just don't think you're going to have people that are going to, I mean, we have caught up significantly on principal pay. I mean, I'll just tell you, like, I started as principal at White House High School, I made $76,000. When I came up here, I made $81,000. We're way up, we're well above that now, but post-COVID, the pressure on a principal is astronomical, and they could leave. I mean, when I was making $81,000 at White House High School, I could have made $118,000 to $125,000 in Williamson County.
Okay. Another question I have. So I'm looking at a lot of these new positions we're adding. Can you pull up the slide on
Sure.
The new positions like nurse and trainer and all of that? And of course, and then of course we had new positions. I know that there are some classroom positions that are going away at some Title I schools. I'm guessing it's not. Perhaps it has to do with enrollment. I don't know.
No, Title, we received a $450,000 budget cut.
Well, these are classroom teachers. So
They were teachers paid out of the Title budget. That's a federal budget. So, all right. So we get an allocation from the state for Title I. Those schools spend that in addition to the money. Like, it's not a regular ed teacher at a Title school that's been cut unless they had an enrollment drop.
Okay.
We had some Title staff that we had to cut. It's extremely. Next week we can have Ms. Skinner explain it to you because she understands it better than I do. But basically, they cut about $450,000 from our budget. Now we're getting $57,000 back for each of the next 7 years because the state screwed up their funding formula and didn't pay us properly for Title for the last 4 years. So rather than give us that $400,000 now, they're going to give us a $57,000 check for the next 7 years. Now, they gave us the first installment of that $57,000 about 3 weeks ago on a Friday, and then on Monday they said that they had made a mistake in our calculation and that they reduced us by another $60,000. So they took their $57,000 back. So that's led. So, for instance, when you do a Title school, you take the smallest Title school and you calculate a per pupil expenditure, and then you spiral it up from there. So if you set that rate at $1 at Oakmont, and that's our smallest Title school with the lowest percentage of poverty, okay? And you spiral that up to Venus Stewart, which is our largest Title school with the largest poverty population, you have to give Vena that much or more.
Right.
So you look at, like, for instance, you have 1 or 2 schools that eat maybe 75% of the Title budget, because that's the way Title's set up. It's created to supplement the work that we're doing in heavily impoverished areas. So that's kind of, we cut more. It's a weird time in Sumner County in terms of where growth is happening. We cut a teacher at Jack Anderson for the first time not a teacher, but a teaching position that was empty for the first time in the history of Jack Anderson. We've always added. We cut at Jack Anderson, added at Lakeside Park.
Okay, well, yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, you're right.
It's just weird right now.
Yeah.
With growth.
So with classroom teachers in Title I, I mean, I'm concerned about class, sizes at the Title I schools. You pull teaching positions out of Title I schools. You've got, you got a class of 22 kids at a Title I. That can be a lot different than a class that's not Title I.
We can get you some averages. Most of our Title schools, we made a decision during COVID because of the needs for intervention. We allowed, and there was a lot more fluctuation in the enrollments in our Title schools with mobility and things like that. So, like, we've carried some insanely low class sizes the last couple of years in Title schools. For instance, we were able to remove or to lose a couple of open teaching positions at Guild. But it's because, like, some of those classroom averages were like 13, 14.
Okay.
So it just wasn't a good allocation of our resources.
Yeah, I mean,
and they were unfilled positions.
I just want to, I would like to just see if there's any of our Title I schools that have large class sizes. You know, I would like to mitigate that in some way.
We generally try to do that because we want
Right.
those class sizes to be as small as possible.
Yeah, because you got a class 22 kids, half of them they're at risk. They have IEPs. It's you know, that's different than a class that's, you know, not a Title I.
Yeah, I mean,
and so I just want to see if we can work
Sure.
out that, and you know, make sure that those schools are not having large class sizes. Because you know, you mentioned about principals. That's the other thing. I definitely like how you're gonna add a couple of I guess rotating APs.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you're right. When a principal is dealing with 15 meetings a week for IEPs or whatever, I mean, that's they're not going into the classrooms, and so so that's what's another concern, you know. So,
Sure.
you know, but and then I guess, you know, talking about just getting back to the conversation that we were having a minute ago about funding partners and county commission, legislature. I think, you know, and I was looking at that slide. It says, you know, we want to invest in preparing students, provide opportunities for students to learn, increase compensation, address critical school facility needs, continue to innovate as a school district. And I think you know, who's not doing that is the growth in our county and those that are profiting from it. And I think it's time to maybe consider us drafting a resolution asking our legislature to repeal the County Relief Act, or whatever that is, that prohibits us from enacting impact fees. And because the growth is just, I mean, we're having budget problems, but we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to fund building new schools, or it's just going to be, and already we're paying millions a year just to service debt. So I just think we're in a unique time, like you said, and I just think, you know, the chickens have come home to roost, and it's time that we maybe draft a resolution doing that. So I may work on that.
Okay.
And
I think another thing to celebrate we haven't really talked about is we're able to, as Ms. Andrews mentioned, in these unique times, right? Because of the work that we've done in the past, we're able to basically float about $30 million in addition to what we spent this year in capital money to address our athletic facility needs. Most school districts would never float these athletic facilities out of their reserves. They would do a bond. Interest rates right now are 6-7% on bonds. We built Liberty Creek and the courthouse under 3%, some of it under 2%. So, you know, like we did that at a really affordable price for the county. You know, now's not the right time to do a bond. So the fact that we've got the ability to pay for those athletic facilities out of our reserve funds while also addressing our needs is a huge win for the county. It's going to require sacrifice, and I think we got to put everything on the table to try to address how we can get more revenue. I mean, I hear Mr. Lacey's concerns. I can tell you that I think that, you know, I think there are a lot of things in our favor to see more revenue next year from the legislature and from the commission. I just think that our economy has remained resilient and strong, and it's not, you know, I jokingly said that about Costco, but you don't see any shortage of people in restaurants and, you know, stores and things like that. So, you know, I mean, if nothing else, I'm always conscious. Like, I go to the Kroger, I live in Goodlettsville, but I go to the Kroger at Glenbrook, not the Kroger at Goodlettsville, because it's in Davidson County. I'm not saying that my grocery purchases are a huge amount anymore. We're empty nesters, but.
Well, I'll just, you know, add on that. So we had the compensation study. It's $45 million, and I was just doing a little hypothetical math with that. And yeah, we've got people that are, you know, prospering. But we have, I think, the county trustee has. There's about 61,000 residential paying units for property taxes, and you do the math. That 45 million comes out to about 750 average per household. And for a lot of people in Sumner County, that's their food budget for a month. it's their utility bills for 2 months, 3 months. It's that cost is significant, and so if we can avoid, and when you say county commission, what we're really saying is our people, our taxpayers, our citizens, asking them for more money, and I think we're maxed out. I really do at this point, especially with inflation, and it's just killing a lot of people. So, so I share the concerns of Mr. Lacey. I would like to avoid that if we can.
I just want to wrap up with a couple things on the budget. Like, I think these are the right goals for our district. Our team, and this isn't anything that I came up with or even my team. This is from hundreds of hours spent in schools this year talking to teachers and classified staff and principals and everybody else. And I think talking to chambers of commerce and realtors groups and Rotary clubs and anybody. I mean, I spoke to the widows at one of the churches. I've pretty much gone anywhere that would have me to speak. Some that maybe didn't want me back, but these are good goals for our district, and I'm proud of these. And I wanted to, because it's easy to lose sight of what we're doing. If I come to this picture and I look at our next generation of teachers that we're training, our kids, our graduates, into the first, our first pictures that we looked at. I was thinking, like, the last couple of years, I didn't get to it this year, but I was on the interview team for Burris for their leadership kids. And one of the questions that we asked was, who's your leader that you look up to in this building? And at least half of the kids talked about the custodian. And it was because he walks around every day. None of them mentioned because he kept, because he cleaned, kept the school spotless. It's because he knows their name. He asks them every day how they're doing. He encourages them to do well in their classes. I think of a woman that I'm dear friends with that's overcoming breast cancer. And she said that if we can get most of this compensation done, she'll be able to come back and work with her babies. I think of another friend of mine that was my custodian when I was in White House. She's worked every day for 30 plus years, getting up, doing everything that needed to be done, buying kids meals, buying kids clothes, everything. And she worked for many of those years where she was making $7, $8 an hour. And to see the jump and the difference this will make for her, it's the moral imperative for me. It'll be hard. We're going to make a lot of sacrifices. We're going to figure out a lot of things, and we're going to work together, and we're going to fight tooth and toenail. But for me, my recommendation is this is a solid budget. It doesn't give us everything that we want, but it gets us most of the way there, and it's closer to being sustainable. I don't think now for the county is a good time for us to have a protracted budget fight. I think we can make this work and then work together next year to try to find more revenue wherever that might be, to address the needs of our schools. And that's I think this is fair. I think it addresses the needs of our teachers and staff. It doesn't get us to the promised land, but it gets right out to the edge of it. And I think it's worth us doing. And I'm so proud of my team and the work that they've done. I'm proud of our teachers and principals and support staff and the work that they've done. And I can't thank them enough for the work that they've done over the last few months. And thank you all for, I know, Jeremy gives me a hard time for being long-winded at times, but I wanted to, I just wanted to, share not just the budget numbers, but also the story behind it for what we're trying to do and the direction I'm hoping we can go.
All right, we have some other things on the agenda, don't we?
We do. Let me get my computer back up. I thought I was done, Mr. Brew.
You just did A, now we got to go B, C, D, and E, and F.
All right, Ms. Brown's going to jump here and help me with these. Or Mr. Johnson.
Actually, Mr. Johnson's going to try to short circuit Ms. Brown.
Yes.
So basically what all these policies are is our finance team, Trevor's over here, has been going through our finance policies and doing kind of what we did doing a deeper dive than we did the last time we went through them with TSBA, and just looking at things that needed to be updated to change to state law, current practice, and that sort of thing. And so we felt like this was a good time to run them through when we were at a budget workshop. So that's pretty much what all of this is. And if anybody's got individual questions, then I'll pitch to Ms. Brown.
Did you cover all of them?
That's all of them.
That's all of them.
They're all finance
We don't have any
policies.
other questions. We're fixing to be adjourned if we don't have any other questions, so. Let's get done.
I think Mr. Wise has a question.
Gavel's out, last call. All right, we're adjourned.
Good job, Trevor.